First and foremost, thank you, Eric, for taking your time to come and let us interview you for our Finance 420 class.
Sure.
So, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experiences that led you to your job now?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is Eric. I went to UC Davis for undergrad. I majored in managerial economics, class of 2015. So I've been working in the tech slash fintech space for the past 5 years. So it's very, it's not easy to find an industry that you're passionate about after college, but I think one of my passion is about financial literacy. So like being in fintech really kind of resonates with me and my kind of passion, right? So in during undergrad, I interned at a bunch of real estate and also just like kind of fintech space, namely a lending club in their risk department. And I thought it was super interesting kind of space that we're disrupting the finance space, which is like a really, as old as time, right? Trading and just having like a universal currency, just very very like fundamental, right, to the how society functions. So that's very interesting to me. After college, I worked at Oracle for a year, but I wasn't really kind of passionate about enterprise software. I wanted to be more along the kind of the consumer product space, which led me to my next kind of gig at Visa, which is very kind of very near and dear to kind of our everyday living, right? I was there for 3 years on the pricing and also the risk kind of space. Pricing, I did a lot of kind of pricing for this fee called interchange, which is kind of like banks like Chase, Citi kind of fund their rewards programs. It's kind of like a big fee that merchants pay to the issuing bank when they process Visa transactions. And then after that, I kind of want to be more on the strategy side. That's where I kind of went to the operations and strategy function within Visa Risk, which is pretty cool because we're heavily into the magnetic stripe to EMV kind of chip and also the contactless transition. We're keeping the security in mind, but also kind of reducing the friction when you pay at the point of sale system. Which is hugely beneficial because of COVID. You don't touch anything, so contactless payment has really kind of proliferated over time. So that was super cool to kind of work on that. And then after 3 years, I figured, I wasn't really growing at a huge enterprise. So I wanted to kind of transition to a more startup environment. And that's kind of when a bunch of the Visa folks kind of went over to SoFi. And I really kind of was really kind of their mission statement of get your money right, really kind of, again, resonate with me. And just, instead of trapping people in debt, we're going to help them to be financially savvy, financially kind of free, and I was really kind of passionate about that part. So yeah, that's pretty much how I ended up here. So right now I am a credit risk manager at SoFi, managing kind of their day-to-day operations within the risk function. So yeah, I've been here for about 8 months. So yeah, I want to pause here. Any questions, or if not, we can move on to the next question.
I think that's cool. Can you explain further what you do in credit risk?
Sure, yeah. So here at SoFi, it's more of a traditional bank, right? We can basically originate loans. So, for example, right, Gary, you need a personal loan to say, remodel your kitchen. You want $30,000, and you don't have the cash, on hand right now. Or even if you do, if the interest rates are low, it's like, why not, right? So you kind of come in and you say, hey, this is my FICO score, this is my free cash flow, this is how much I have in my bank, this is my credit history, like, give me the best rate possible. But like, how do we know that, right? So that's where credit risk comes in. Like, we set risk tiers, we kind of get all your information, and we imagine like a machine, like cranking out like, hey, based on XYZ, this is the rate, this is the term, this is whatever you qualify. So it's very like a methodical way to think about like how to categorize our customers. So we have different risk tiers based on your profile. We have different loan terms based on, and then eventually, right, we have pricing based on risk as well. So that's like pretty much a high level I guess summary. And if you want to get into more detail, then we use machine learning. We use different kind of various cuts to kind of categorize you better, and in various ways we're more efficient, more superior than your traditional bank, and how kind of fintech disrupts the finance industry. But that's more of a in-depth conversation. But at a high level, that's kind of what I do.
So like you said, SoFi is different from a more traditional bank. So being a fintech type of bank, how do you use technology differently?
Yeah, so for sure. So one part of how our business stands out is actually very similar to how other tech companies stand out, right? We think about e-commerce. How does Amazon differentiate from your Best Buy and Sears? They don't have a brick and mortar shop. They don't have to pay their employees to station there. They don't have to pay their real estate fee, right? Like I mean rents, right? Just like being able to be all digital and mobile first puts you at a huge advantage because you don't have to pay a lot of the fees, right? You save a lot. And what does that translate to? Better rates for your members, better rate for your customers, right? So that's a huge advantage for us. SoFi does not have bank branches like Chase or Citi. We save a lot on real estate. We save a lot on branch. We save a lot on logistics. Just so much kind of the cost saving. And on top of that, we leverage the latest kind of machine learning techniques and just various ways to automate decisioning. So at a traditional bank, you might have a bunch of kind of manual reviewers, evaluate your loan profile and things like that. But here we have various models that automate this process so that we don't have to kind of pay operations folks to kind of have extensive review. We want to automate the process as much as we can. So those are just two other ways that we differentiate, and not to mention better member experience, being mobile first, being kind of millennial driven, right? All those kind of like are the cherries on top. But fundamentally, that's kind of what we differentiate ourselves from the traditional banking industry.
So does SoFi like work out of an app mostly or a website?
Yeah, so when we started back in 2012, we were kind of focused on student loan refinancing, but recently we wanted to kind of transition our strategy to be kind of mobile first, very similar to your Robinhood or any kind of like other like app-based investment. We want to be mobile focused, so you can do everything on our award-winning mobile app. We just want to be really kind of putting that as our priority and to be able to do everything on that.
You worked at Visa, and so how does like SoFi, like being a newer company, like how does it differentiate from like a more traditional company like Visa?
Yeah, so just on top of like the two companies being very like different in business model wise, Visa is a very like network heavy, no network based company, right? Like Visa doesn't issue cards, no, Chase does. Visa is just a freeway toll on the Bay Bridge. Like all they do is collect, basically tolls. They don't take out any risk. So that business is very, very lucrative. They have very kind of profit margins. I believe Visa and MasterCard have the highest profit margin of any company, just because of the unique business model, right? But here at SoFi, like it is more along the traditional finance company, right? We underwrite loans, we take on the risk if it defaults, and things like that. So that's like fundamentally how it's different. But to answer your question, to be more kind of how a fintech is different from a traditional company, I think we move really, really quickly. Like things here move at least like 5 times faster than Visa. Like decisions gets made overnight. We always we have a very scrappy mindset. At Visa, you're the market leader. You don't really care. You want to be safe. You want to play very kind of safe ball, right? Here at SoFi, if you don't move fast, you're gonna fall behind. Robinhood, Wealthfront, whatever, all these kind of fintech players is gonna kill you. If you don't move fast, you're gonna be kind of tossed out. So we are very nimble, we're very scrappy, and that's how we operate our business.
So does SoFi like do they like research a lot of like new technologies, like similar to Robinhood?
Yeah, so we're always kind of innovating, right? Recently, we acquired Galileo, which was a like a smaller like fintech company, and then we also acquired kind of internationally this company called Security Eight in Hong Kong. So we always try to think about ways where we can diversify and innovate, which is very important to our survival. Because our bread and butter is the student loan refinancing, and with the new administration coming in, right, with Biden, if he does anything drastic on the student loan side, then we could be underwater, right? So it's very important for us to be very diversified in our offering so that we don't get, killed off, right, by one regulation.
And so in class we've been learning about cryptocurrency, and I was wondering of your opinion on like cryptocurrency and its like future.
Yeah, sure. I mean, what I would say is very like opinionated to my own. SoFi does offer crypto trading. That's just something we offer, but I have no say in it. Personally, I don't see it as a kind of medium of exchange or anything currency of that nature. Visa can process 40,000 transactions in 1 second. There's no way crypto have that level of capacity and that level of just scale, right? That infrastructure build to be able to handle the function of a currency. So I do believe it's a form of commodity where it's like gold or silver, you can kind of trade it and think of that as a value because it's very like finite, right? So it's like currency. When people believe in it, when people trust in it, it has value. Like today it passed what 16K. I mean people believe in it, that's why. But to be able to have the scale and infrastructure to be used as a currency, just nowhere close to what MasterCard and Visa has to offer. It's just impossible. Not to mention the regulatory issues, right? Just like people buy drugs with it. It doesn't work in my mind. So.
And also, what do you think of like the fintech industry or sector in general? You think it will eventually like disrupt more traditional methods?
Yeah, for sure. I think fintech is the future, which is why I'm here. I mean, I wouldn't be in a dying industry. I think how Uber disrupted the taxi industry, how Amazon disrupted, the traditional commerce industry. Um, the same way, like fintech just have a huge advantage. Um, you know, not like I mentioned earlier, like not having a brick and mortar shop just saves so much operational costs. The only challenge will be on the regulatory front, right? Like how will the government think about the ways we're following rules and things like that. But ultimately, I think fintech, just from a business standpoint, we have a huge edge over traditional banks because we just have a head start. We don't have to. It's always easier to start fresh than to have like a digital transformation. It's very hard to renew and refresh like old systems because like people's mindset and just old infrastructure just takes a long time. When you start new, you can do everything right the first time. So that's where I think fintech have a huge advantage over the traditional finance industry.
Okay. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hand it off to Chris.
sure.
Thank you, Terrence. You mentioned earlier how the industry moves really fast or you will be killed. How has the industry changed since you started? And even more recently, what has changed? What has your company changed to adapt to the corona pandemic?
Yeah, for sure. I think the industry is always changing. That's why we have different product offerings, right? So far, we started with student loan refinancing. We branched out into personal loans, then we did invest with traditional stocks and cryptocurrency, and then we started to do kind of like fractional trading. That's kind of like catering to the more millennial. Like you don't have money for one share of Amazon, but you can do like fraction, right? That's great. So that's kind of like innovation front. Not to mention like we have like money management things of that nature. But what was just the second part of the question again?
Second part is how has your company changed in terms of doing
COVID.
business and due to
Yeah,
COVID, yeah, and also
yeah,
with employees working at home.
yeah. So I'm a COVID baby, right? I started my job during COVID, so
Okay.
I never really met my manager in person. So we definitely have tightened our credit box, and that essentially just means that we have more restrictions around who we're lending it to, just to kind of reduce our losses. So that's very like industry standard kind of practice to tighten your credit box during like economic recession and things of that nature. I know at big banks they do that, and plus like they do more this thing called LLR, which stands for loan loss reserve, which they basically hoard like billions of dollars at big banks to just to be kind of cautious about loan any expected loan loss. So that they build out this like huge pool of money, and they can kind of use it in case they have any liquidity issues. So things like that. But for us, yeah, just mostly tie in the credit box and just be more kind of cautious with kind of who we're lending it to, and on top of that, everyone's working from home. So
Earlier, you also mentioned how there's some tools like machine learning, and with that, how do you think the industry has changed, and what skills and tools have you retained from your job?
yeah, I learned a lot about machine learning, the various techniques. I learned a lot about kind of how to automate process and not depending on kind of operational folks. So it's all about cost cutting and being efficient. I'm sure you guys read about how robots and machines gonna take over, replace millions of jobs in the future. I mean, I'm literally living in that right now, right? Like, instead of having loan reviewers like reviewing loans, we have various machine learning rules that would dictate that would determine if the loan is granted or not, right? That just reduce a bunch of like FTEs, like full-time employees, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm literally a witness in the kind of digitalization of the workforce. So yeah.
Yeah. With that, to any students who are starting out, who are graduating right now, what advice do you have for those students looking for a job in the fintech industry?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have, very fundamental technical skills. So I think anyone in the fintech space right now, like it's almost a requirement to be very good at, Excel, PowerPoint, um, almost like second nature. On top of that, you have to know SQL. You have to know the fundamentals of Python and R. I'm learning on the job, but it's very important to kind of have these kind of bases because everyone, it's like a it's like an industry standard now almost. So on top of that, I highly encourage you guys to read just more Wall Street Journal, what's the latest in the industry. I read a lot from this website called Payments Source for the fintech space. You can subscribe to business insiders in their fintech kind of specific industry. There's tons of resource. So I highly recommend outside of schoolwork, you do a lot of the independent research. You read a lot of extracurricular kind of readings that will highly benefit you, because during a job interview you can mention all these like current events that will put you at a much better position than other candidates. So
Yeah, you mentioned how Excel and PowerPoint are pretty much standard. That's true. But then, like for us, we've taught when it comes to Python and SQL, they don't really teach unless you go out of your way to
sure.
learn it. And
Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. I mean, I never learned in class. I barely learned anything, right? I learned everything on the job, but to put you guys more, ahead of everyone else, I highly recommend using Coursera or anything like that to learn about SQL. Just having the basics, it's always helpful because you're either pulling it there yourself or you're relying on someone else. And I hate to rely on other people, right? So if you know how to pull it there yourself, like it's always a plus. So
Yeah, gotta always carry your own weight.
exactly,
And
and more, and that's how you stand out, right? So
yeah. All right, I'm gonna pass it back to Gary.
great.
For sure. I mean, I feel like the questions could be from any of us now, but one question now is, where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? Because fintech and the business world now is very mobile in terms of job wise. So
Yeah, so I do see myself at SoFi for the near future. I think we're doing very exciting things. I think publicly we had just announced that we launched our credit card product, as well as we just got our preliminary banking charters, which means we can be a kind of a regulated bank, in the near future. So yeah, it's very exciting things happening. So I definitely see myself here. And then long term, I do love the fintech industry. I think this is the future of finance. And I just really, I'm passionate about this space. So I do see myself in this space for long term.
um, so you mentioned like loans defaulting, right? I feel like
Sure. Yeah.
bigger banks could take like loan defaults better, I guess, because they have more money. But what happens if a loan at SoFi defaults? Does the company get hit harder?
Yeah, so I mean, it's not so much about the having more money. It's more about your risk tolerance, right? Like because you can be in various market segments. You can be targeting like super prime borrowers. So you charge, lower rate and you expect lower loss. Or it can be more risky, high risk, high reward. You can be a subprime lender. You charge higher rate and you also get higher losses, right? You can make money across the FICO spectrum. Like, it just depends on how you set it, right? For us, we're just a super prime lender. We lend to people with really good credit. We lend to people with like college degrees, and that's our target audience, right? So for us, like we obviously with that we set our loan loss on the lower end of the industry. So we kind of just communicate, that to our investors. Hey, like this is our loan loss appetite. Like we expect to be this range, because it's a industry understanding that you know it just it's impossible to get to the loss rate to zero. Like, things happen, and you have to always be kind of prudent and plan for these things. So it's not so much about like having losses is bad. It's more about like, hey, this is what we communicated to you about our loan loss rate. Is it meeting our expectations? So that's pretty much how we view risk. Yeah.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah.
I also have so SoFi just released that SoFi Investments. How does it like differ to like Robinhood or like Webull?
Yeah.
The,
Yeah, so we have a very different target audience than kind of Webull or Robinhood. Those are more like kind of day trading. You want to be like buying options and just more kind of risky, fun investment, right? There's a whole like meme about Robinhood traders and things like that. But how SoFi approaches it is more of a we are long-term investments, that type of kind of company, right? We want to engage with our members, right? We offer various products. We want to meet all of your financial needs, and one of them is long-term investing. We want to get you in early. We want to help millennials invest early. We offer our own ETF, funds. We offer our kind of various picks. We want to set you up for success in the long term, right? We want to be very prudent. We want to be very kind of risk averse. So that's kind of like our approach. We want to, when you're 60, we want you to be financially set. And Robinhood and Webull is more like you want to trade actively in the market. You want to be more of an active trader than an investor so far.
okay, so it sounds like it's like a personal wealth management app.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna hand it back to Gary.
it does not always need to be handed back to me. But so if everything is done in app, is there any like person-to-person contact or not necessarily like face-to-face, but are there people at SoFi that are like clients, or is everything done like through app through like machine learning?
Yeah, we don't have any branch. We don't do phone. We do everything kind of on in app. And if you have questions, we have kind of customer support, right? So it's more of it's very like kind of industry standard because you want to be, have the least operational folks, right?
So if someone has like a money plan, so wealth management, so they just set like what they want their wealth to be in the future, and then the app kind of figures it out for them.
So it's more of a hybrid approach, right? We have a bunch of handpicked ETFs that you can invest in. That's like we think about different industries. So we want you to be actively investing in those, and then also you can also obviously pick and choose your own kind of stock too. But we're just generally more risk averse and more kind of long term than your other apps. So. Great. Anything else?
I'm good. What about you guys?
I think I'm good.
Great. Fantastic. Well, it's been nice chatting with you guys.
I know. Thank you so much, Eric.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good night, guys.
Again, thank you again for your time.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.